Well, what do you think about the three new now that you've added?
I think it's all good. There's security in numbers. We talked about it. I'm sure that Chad he knows a lot more about it than I do, other than when it's going to happen. The numbers is strength, and how they're going to break it up, who's going to play who. I think that's the challenge, but that's a good challenge to have. When you look back and from where we were a year and a half ago. I mean, all of this is somewhat unsettling, right? So there's a lot of history and a lot of tradition that's being crumbled, but it is what it is. So now you just move forward and, try to make the best out of it. I was visiting with somebody last night. So who plays in the Rose Bowl?
It's going away anyway. I mean,
Yeah.
it's going to be part of the playoffs. So.
But to a certain extent, to not have a Pac and a Big Ten team is going to feel a little bit weird, right? It's like it always is at 4 o'clock because you watch the certain games, you eat, and then you get to watch that game. Unless you play good that year, then you're playing on that day, and you don't get to do that. But otherwise, it's kind of tradition, and it'd be like playing that game at 11 a.m. or something. It just wouldn't be the same. But they're good additions. We talked about this, I think, a little bit the other day. Arizona and Arizona State have the same board of regents anyway. So, I don't know anything about it, but I don't know how they could be in that meeting and think, okay, it's good for them, but not for them. And then obviously Utah is a really good program. I think they're very well coached, and they play over their head and win games that people shouldn't think that they would win, and have done it consistently. He's been there the same amount of time I have, and so he's got a tradition there, and they play really well based on him being there so long, and they kind of know what they're trying to get accomplished. So
I know this is fresh, but now that it's going to be 16 teams, scheduling is going to be interesting. Are you a fan of 8-team divisions, play everybody, and then have maybe a 1 or 2 from the other, or would you prefer a 4-4-4-4?
So that's one of the things that I haven't had a discussion about with the most innovative commissioner in all of sports. And I look forward to having a talk with him about that, because I want to hear what he has to say. Because I think there's so many possibilities, and there's a lot of pros and cons with both possibilities. We would like to establish something and have to start. You're trying to accomplish multiple things. You'd like for it to be somewhat geographical for travel for the fans and the student athletes. You'd like to create rivalries somehow, but you also don't want to get locked into 2 teams playing each other so much that now you go back to, well, how do we know who was best, because I never played this team in 4 years. So I think there's a real challenge there, but it's a good challenge.
Coach, would you be in favor of replacing a non-conference game potentially with, let's say, 4 divisions and having a playoff to get to the championship game? You know what I'm saying? Would you be in favor of something like that?
I think it's going to be more challenging to get into playoffs as we speak now with the teams that we have in this league, and you're building it up. So you could have more 7-win teams than you do 9 or 10-win teams in this league now. And ultimately, I'm going to guess the other coaches and players want to win the conference, and then they want to make the playoffs. So we have to be careful about the position we put ourselves in that could minimize those opportunities.
You just said something about there being a potential logjam of 7 and 5, 8 and 4 teams. I mean, there's already parity as it stands. You just said the other day, I don't know who's going to win the league. No one does, right? Well, it's interesting. Everyone looks at the 12-team playoff and thinks, well, that automatically opens the door for more opportunity. And what you're saying is right in that if you expand too heavy, potentially, in a conference and you have too much parity, it's like a law of unintended consequences here. Are you worried? Well, the question is, are you worried that there are some unintended consequences that people aren't thinking about when it comes to this stuff?
Well, they're not thinking about that at all. What they're thinking about is money.
Right.
So we can get that established. We all know that. We talked about that 2 years ago. That's why we're in this situation. That's just a fact. But the thing that is interesting is that they're for the fans and for just the college football junkie, the way it's falling is going to be really good because there's going to be a lot of parity, more so than ever, in my opinion, the way this has fallen. And it's going to be more difficult if you're not careful to get in the playoffs because of it. And as this conference realignment is going to settle for a while, but it could move again, and it could move to an NFL system real fast, because we could run into some complications with travel, financial, and student athletes maybe not wanting to do so much traveling. So we could get into more of an NFL concept with local divisions somehow. It could happen real fast. And with that, there's going to be a lot of parity and competition. And David asked a good question about how many games do you play now in conference? If you could get a bipartisan agreement amongst the conferences that are, which now would be, I mean, no disrespect, but it would be the Big 12, the Big 10, ACC, and the SEC, right? If they could get a bipartisan agreement that we're going to play 10 conference games, we all are, it would benefit everybody, because then you wouldn't have some teams playing 8, some playing 9. And then there are teams that are going to be in these conferences that have already scheduled in the future and have 2 Power 5 conference games. That's going to be tough. So that's something we should do. And here's why I think that should happen. One, because it's going to make more money, because people are going to want to come to the games. They're going to want to show up and watch those games. 2, TV wants that. They want to show games. People want to turn the TV on and get their viewership ratings up. And then we would have parity amongst the conferences in when we decide who makes the playoffs. We can't say, well, they played 8 and played 3 teams that were way below their level, and this conference played 9 and they played 2 Power 5s. And it would create some parity, and it would help at the end of the season, in my opinion.
You think this is all headed toward NFL life, basically? No matter what conference, they're going to just take the top 30 to 35 and
I think it'll be more than that, but I think it's going that direction.
what's your timeline on
But
that?
you know who has to agree on it? TV. They're the ones that have to agree on it.
The central players in that.
Just go ask them. They're the ones making decisions.
What, 5 years maybe? Over under number for that.
3.5. I think that I'm thrilled for where we're at Oklahoma State, but I think at some point there'll be some things that come up that people don't think about when money gets in their way, and all the different hours and travel, and I think it might be an issue, and they might try to localize it a little bit more.